This is Chacha, by the way. In this family, we don't kill dogs. By the way, you have no idea what it's been like backstage with the Mirandas. Just as we were coming out, Lin-Manuel told his mother, "Don't fart in your seat."
The mics are on our seat.
I think he thought he was talking to Donald Trump. But anyways, I'm going to make it about the Mirandas for a bit. Let's talk about, okay, I love this book so much. When you ask me to do this, you know what I always tell you, I never say no to you, I never say no to the Mirandas, because I feel you, as a family, you have done so much for the Latino community that anytime you ask, I will say yes.
Thank you.
But I will also tell you, I will confess, I wasn't expecting for the book to be so fucking good. It's really entertaining, it's really insightful, it's like a history lesson, a political lesson, it's a lesson in psychology. I learned so much listening to this. And so my question, the first question is, why now? What made you want to talk about getting married for sex in Puerto Rico?
It was part of the political milieu. Just kidding. The origin of the book, it's the last couple of years, there has been this explosion of Latino experts talking about the Latino vote. And it's not more than someone who read two polls and put together an essay about the Latino vote. And I was getting increasingly pissed about it. And a friend said to me, instead of complaining, why don't you do something about it? You've spent over 4 decades doing this, then do something, write about it. I got myself Richard Wolff, who is my collaborator, who's here tonight. And in working on it, family became centerpiece and a protagonist, because our family has been part of everything I have done. When it was just my mic, to when we then got this huge mic, right, when Lin-Manuel got into the scene, but always trying to understand that we are a typical Latino family. All families don't have a Lin-Manuel, but all of our families are here because they want something better for their kids. That's why we come.
Right.
So we wanted to get that as part of the story.
And for you all, when your dad, when your husband tells you, I'm going to write a book, is there like any trepidation, fear, joy? What are we feeling? Because we know he's unfiltered, so like...
I think we should first
They were
hear
all very happy.
from the birthday girl, my mom, Luz. Happy birthday, Mommy. I really want to know your reaction most.
And to celebrate her birthday, Luis has her here hawking his book.
As I said, the family was a protagonist.
I didn't really mind because he indicated from the very beginning that we had license to censor whatever we wanted, but we wound up censoring very little. Our lives have been an open book because we've had a very public life. We've been in the community working and doing for the longest time. So there really weren't a lot of surprises in the book, except for the last chapter, which I refused to read.
All right, well, since you brought it up, let's talk about that last chapter.
We don't talk about Bruno.
You'll have to read the book, apparently. But, okay, so first thing that struck me as I started reading the book is, at a time when DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, has become such a source of culture wars, has become so controversial, is so maligned by so many. Luis, you came here because of DEI. I mean, your story of arriving in the United States was it an experiment back then?
It was a total experiment. Bernie Kalinkowitz decided that out of the 20 doctoral students in clinical psych at NYU, there were going to be 10 whites, 5 women, 5 men, 5 blacks, and 5 Latinos. And they went and recruited me in Puerto Rico. And I think that...
You got a scholarship that got him off the island.
I think someone wrote a play about that. But it was, actually our first date was March in front of the Supreme Court for the Bakke case, which was the beginning of the end of affirmative action. And I have always seen diversity as positive. Waves of immigrants came into this country, built what we have, and now it's our turn to build some more and pay the Social Security of lots of white boys. And we'll do that, just like a previous generation did with our people. That has always been a source of pride. And coming as part of that experiment, because at the end of the day, everyone did well in that class. And Bernie believed that as the city was changing, so should psychology change so that you had diverse voices seeing patients. Unfortunately, I ended up not being one of the psychologists.
Imagine this man is your shrink. It's an intense energy.
And you read the book, he came really awfully close.
I did, but I was not a good one. My professors used to tell me in supervision, and they were nice for a little while. After a while, I imagine I was insufferable. But their point was, you are rushing, quote unquote, the therapeutic relationship. You want patients to move as fast as you do in resolving conflict. I'm like, isn't my job to push them to get there quicker rather than slower? No. So that was not.
Well, thank God you didn't go into that, because if you push them quick, you don't make enough money. You would have been a very poor shrink.
Just imagine your shrink going, "You said that last week."
And you talk about, so you come here, and I'm still amazed by the amount of people who don't know that Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, are born U.S. citizens. But you are a U.S. citizen, but at the same time you came here and you were an immigrant. So what was that dichotomy like?
It's the way you feel. It is difficult to get the papers, and believe me, I spent an entire year when President Reagan signed back in '86, the only immigration amnesty that this generation has seen. I spent a year through the city looking for people who needed to legalize their situation. But it's the feeling. It's going to the post office and the postal worker telling you, "Oh, I'm Miranda too." And then when I open my mouth, is, "Oh, but you're not my Miranda." So it's the way they make you feel, even if you have the legal papers to be a citizen.
So if I ask you, because so much of the book is about living in between two cultures, right? If I ask each of you, because we all on this stage live between two cultures, when did you realize you had become fully assimilated como un americano? Or have you?
Has never happened. What I love about me, and what I tried hard with Luz in raising the family, it's that we're not a melting pot. We're un sancocho. And each
How do you
part,
translate that, Lynn? Sancocho,
it's a
¿cómo se
stew. It's a stew where you could taste each ingredient, but the totality is more than the parts of it. And I'm proud of being that, of being someone who is working as hard as we can to make the country better. Coño, I have a son who wrote the story of the birthing of the country, kid of Puerto Ricans. That's what every immigrant group does. You give to the larger society.
And how do you, this newer generation, navigate that, living between two cultures? What does that mean for you?
I mean, I wrote a whole show about it. My first show, In the Heights, that's really what I was wrestling with. What does it mean? What do you call home when your parents were both born somewhere else? And for some of the characters, that is 2 generations back. From some, it's no generations back. And every character defines home differently. But I've always said the most autobiographical part of that is there's a song called When You're Home, when Nina sings, "When I was younger, I imagined what would happen if my parents had stayed in Puerto Rico. Right. Who would I be if I had never seen Manhattan?" And you're constantly figuring that out. And it's a really highly specific and very personal answer. And it grows exponentially more complicated when you have kids. And you want your kids to have a connection to the island your parents grew up in. You know, we were sent to Vega Alta every summer. And it was, my grandparents didn't speak English, so it was sink or swim Spanish, and they worked. It wasn't like we were at the beach all day. My grandmother ran Viajes Miranda, a travel agency. Our grandfather was the George Bailey of Vega Alta. He ran the town bank, credit union. And so we knew who was flying where, and we knew all the town gossip, and we knew we needed money. Because we were just bouncing around there all summer, and so we had for real Puerto Rican summers. We were not like in a resort, and I'm really grateful for that because I go back. We have a really intense connection with our family on the island. I'm curious for you, Miguel, what your answer would be because you really grew up in the city.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of. Being largely Dominican, I kind of grew up in 3 in a way, especially I feel like in my later years. But me personally, that's not something I've ever thought of much because for the most part, I just think of me as in the entirety of me. I don't, yes, I will often try to, for lack of better words, categorize certain parts of myself and my identity, but it doesn't change the fact that they make one person. They don't make multiple different people. I'm just me. So, yeah.
But I always say I'm from Queens.
One of the things you talk about in the book, which I found interesting because it's something that, I think about all the time, is when you begin, and we're gonna be all over the place, by the way. Do not expect anything chronological here. This is not gonna make any sense. And we're sober. You talk about starting the Hispanic Federation and diluting. There were some people who did not want you to do that because they thought you were going to dilute Puerto Rican power by making it a larger pan-Hispanic, for lack of a better term, effort. You fought against that. You have been very successful with the Hispanic Federation. It's something I obsess about because I think people who are not Latinos don't understand that there's a lot of people focus on the differences instead of the things that bring us together. They focus on rivalries and competition and stupidity instead of the things that bring us together. So how did you, back then?
Yeah, I didn't choose to be Hispanic or Latino.
That term didn't even exist.
Existed. But this country's obsession and definition and the way in which they saw the country was black and white. And here are a whole bunch of people who come from a whole bunch of places, many who were here and we just conquered their lands. And they needed to call us something. So they call us Hispanic. I remember reading in 1980 the front page of Time magazine, Time Under the Sun. I'm like, whatever that means. But then I realized, espérate, we were Mexican Americans in the Southwest, Cubans in Florida, and Puerto Ricans in New York. So if we are 2 million Puerto Ricans and 2 million Cubans and 15 million Mexicans, they say we're Latinos. So now I am going to go to government and say we're 20 million. And I have much more power when I'm talking on behalf of 20 million than 2 million. So I said, I'm going to use this as my advantage. And as we go along, let's figure out what do we have in common and how do we create that common agenda that then we present to others. And that's what the Hispanic Federation was, that attempt to bring people who come from different countries, different generations, different political situations, and advocate for things that were affecting all of us in the same way.
So what do you do, for example, if there is a Hispanic running that you don't like? Because I get this question all the time, right? Like, what if Marco Rubio becomes the first That wasn't supposed to be funny, guys. What if Marco Rubio becomes the first Latino vice presidential candidate? What does that mean?
Tiny Marco?
Niño, por Dios.
Wow, you're using your least favorite guy's nickname for the guy.
Then
You got it wrong, by the way. Little Marco.
Little Marco, right? Then
We so petty.
then he is. I'm not going to vote for him because at the end of the day, I will have to wait until Trump dies for him to be president. So I'm not going to vote for him, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't advance the concept of Latinidad. Because then there's a whole bunch of people. Just remember, this guy goes on stage and says that our blood gets envenena. How the hell do you say?
Poison.
Poisons the blood of this country. So he would have picked someone with poisonous blood to be his vice presidential candidate. I want MAGA to figure out how they handle that dissonance, that cognitive dissonance.
Well, now that you put it that way. Now, so when I look at you as a family, I admire you so much because I've seen you together in so many different places and so many, I follow you on Instagram. I mean, you made them put on Sound of Music costumes and do like an entire skit.
As they should.
And so
We bitched and moaned, but it was fun.
I mean,
We sang Doe a Deer in Austria all day long.
yeah. How many times have you seen Sound of Music?
140 times.
How many times have you seen Hamilton?
Oh, tons of time. because remember, I went to Hamilton during rehearsals, so I will see the same scene for 5 hours. So I have plenty of mileage.
He always thinks he likes to be behind the scenes, but he's too ADD for behind the scenes. So he's like, I'm going with you to the set of the movie. And 3 takes in, he's like, Coño, do you have it yet? I have real work. I
think you got it. I think you got it.
I gave him a cameo, just like being a psychologist. I gave him a cameo in Tick, Tick, Boom, and it was a complicated shot, and he had to go like this. He played a doorman. He had to go like this in a complicated dancing shot. And after the 5th take, I was getting heckled by the doorman, being like, Papa, I have to go back to work. Do you have it yet?
You gave both of them a cameo in The Heights.
Well, I didn't. John Chu did that.
Oh, it wasn't you?
I didn't direct that.
And on that one, we were filming. You were there. And we had a show to go to on Broadway.
Their cameo in the movie was fucking up their theater tickets.
So I remember,
Manuel, but we have a matinee.
So I remember going to John Chu and said, we gotta go in 40 minutes. We better get this shot. And then Luz didn't know the lyrics.
I thought I could lip sync. And they caught me.
But
so
if
I had to
somebody
learn it
asks you, what is, I mean, there's so much love amongst you. There's so much love, so much sense of humor, so much pride and heritage, so much. If somebody asks you, what's the secret, right? People always like to ask, what's the secret for this? What's the secret for a great marriage? What's the secret for that? What's the secret sauce that you think keeps you all together as a family?
We're gonna start with them.
You know, my sister hasn't talked a lot today.
At all. By design.
Go ahead.
Well, I would say that we all, over time, have developed what our roles are. And that really, really helps kind of narrow who does what and what your function is and who do you go to when this. My dad and I work together every day, and by default with you also. And Miguel now, too. And, I mean, Mom's always there. So, I don't know, we're always together somehow. And when he calls me, I don't know if he's going to be talking about you have to pick up your son's tux for his prom, or what happened with that employee today. It could, it goes either way.
You talk about in the book, you write about in the book, you're about to start in the Heights, and you go to see Lin-Manuel in the dressing room. Tell us that story.
This was a tragic story. It's a very sweet story, but it's very funny. So it's the premiere of In the Heights on Broadway. It's the first preview. It is my Broadway debut, and I've been writing the show for 8 years. And
2008.
Typical Puerto Rican family, they're all in my dressing room until 5 minutes to curtain, watching me get dressed. No, we'll be here, we'll be here. And I also made the rookie mistake of having all my best friends in the front row at the first show. That's not a good audience. They're all really scared for you. So you're like, lights up on Washington Heights, and they're like, it's not a good energy. But anyway, it's 5 minutes to curtain, and I go, all right, you really all have to get out. I have to get ready to have my Broadway debut, please. And Sita stays behind, and she goes, I just want to say, all those times you would play a piece that you wrote on piano and I never listened. I wish I had listened more because you've grown up. And she's got this monologue ready. And I'm like, I can't do emotional catharsis at 5 minutes to places. Like, this is a conversation that should have happened years ago. And I have to remember my fucking blocking.
Sorry.
That was a great moment. But that was a great moment. But I would say, in keeping with that, I think the secret is regular aggression. So many families have passive aggression, and they hold on to it, and they go, but 3 years ago, he didn't say this, and they just, we do not keep score. It is just like, brah, you should have done this, brah, and it's out, and we keep it moving. We don't have passive aggression, we have regular aggression.
Another thing that fascinated me about the book is When you came to this country, you were useless, un inútil. You didn't know how to set a dishwasher. You didn't know how to cook. You were, I mean,
I was the oldest son in a Puerto Rican family. I did nothing.
That's old school sexism at its finest.
you know, and now you like bake cakes.
But I did my homework at the table where cooking took place, where conversations were happening. So I had never done it. I remember the first Sunday that I said to myself, coño, how am I going to eat now rice and beans? I've never made rice and beans. And then I said, but I know how to make rice and beans. I saw it hundreds of times. So I just went into my memory bank and figured out how to do rice and beans. And little by little, you realize nobody's going to do this shit for you. You have to do it yourself. And I did.
How did you get from rice, right, which is like 3 ingredients, salt, rice, and water, and oil, to like multi-tiered, really complicated cakes?
Oh, that was my mom. My mom was an incredible baker, and she made wonderful cakes. And I always saw her make it. I've never made it myself. So I called her once and said, just give me the basic recipe for a pound cake, and I'll worry about the rest. And right now, and Luz sees me through the process, you know, Sita's kids or now Lin-Manuel's kids say, well, I want the Hobbit home for my birthday cake.
That's mine. That one's mine. That one's mine.
I'm like, okay, what does that look like? So I go into the internet, and then I figure out, I go to this wonderful store that I've been going for 40 years, New York Cake, in Chelsea, and I buy all the ingredients, and I figure it out.
I'm impressed. If you haven't seen the cakes this man makes.
What's wild is they taste like our grandmother's cakes. Like, he just knows how to do it.
That's unbelievable. How much has this family influenced your writing?
How much time do we have? I think you're always going to the well, and I think that, honestly, I think this very bizarre combination of people, Luz and Luz Miranda, made a very good recipe for a writer, because I have my mom, who's a psychologist, who realized I was a very sensitive kid, and in her way protected that by saying, you're going to be a writer, right? It's all grist for the mill. It's all grist for the mill. And so I really took that to heart, and would use it to talk me into shit I didn't want to do. Like, my first job was at McDonald's. She's like, maybe you're gonna write a song about McDonald's one day. It's all grist for the mill.
And he did.
Take out the trash. It's all grist for the mill. But it's true. It is all grist for the mill. And so whether it's Encanto, and I have to write about an older sibling that gets undue burdens that the younger siblings don't get, with Surface Pressure, which I wrote about, you know. And here's a great sort of anecdote in generational trauma. I wrote Surface Pressure really about my sister. Like, she's literally the CFO for my dad's company. She deals with shit none of us ever have to look at. And she's got that little eye twitch too. And so I'm watching the movie for the first time with her and her boys, her sons, my nephews. And I said to the boys, you know, this song's about your mom. And they go, no way. I go, what do you mean? They go, our mom's the abuela. She's so strict. So it's
There are
all
similarities there, too.
grist for the mill.
And did you see yourself in the song? Like, when you saw it, did you see yourself in the character?
Oh, yeah. And then I watched it again once I realized I hadn't heard the song before we actually saw it together, and he was watching me while
Give
we're
it to your sister. Your sister's older. That's directly from our lives.
No.
Yes.
One of the things you say in the book is you say, I'm really telling you I enjoyed this book. You guys need to read this or listen to it even better. You said that you like to buy gifts for the recipient. In other words, you don't buy for yourself. You buy what you think they would want. So what do you buy for each of them?
Well, when Miguel has a bit of a taste like mine.
I can see that.
I know I could buy some color and something that it's out of the ordinary. With Lin-Manuel, I go to the store and said, show me the most boring clothes that you have.
Which is amazing, because every Father's Day, I go into Robert Graham and I say, give me the loudest, ugliest shirt you have. It's for my dad.
And they know. With Sita, it's always more difficult because she's very picky and has always been very picky. And Luz will always say, you buy for her. I don't understand her. You buy for her. And with Luz, it's easy because Luz is an easy person. No, she's not complicated. She doesn't.
You can't have two complicated people in one marriage.
You
Luis.
cannot. You cannot.
You ain't simple, Luis.
Yeah, right. You ain't simple, he just said.
I think I am.
You also think you're a great patient. And most of your family...
No, I know that I don't have.
No, not that you don't have patience. Like que eres un buen paciente, that when you get sick, you make a very good
I am a
patient.
fantastic patient.
Lies.
I think my doctor is here tonight and he could speak to that.
Well, okay, can we talk about the time that you were having a heart attack and didn't want to go into the hospital because you didn't want to pay parking?
No.
That's in the book.
No, that I wanted to go into the hospital. I was having a heart attack. I wanted to find alternate side parking. And I drove for a little while.
I can't have a heart attack between 10 and 11:30 on Tuesday.
I think that the emergency room was a little alarmed when I said, you think that whatever you're doing can take 2 hours? I have to move the car by 11.
That should have been the moment when you realized you were a New Yorker.
But you said something that really, really touched me in that part, because you talk about, I can't die because Miguel still needs me. You actually said, Sita and Lin-Manuel, they can be on their own.
We're good.
Yeah, they're good.
And they are. And that was my first thought as I was having the heart attack. Sita and Lin-Manuel, they're done.
Turned out great.
And they have built wonderful lives with their mates and their families. Luz, it's an independent woman. She'll be fine, too. She'll be sad. She'll be fine.
When, Lord, when?
I can read my family. But Miguel was in high school. So I knew that was the one who still needed a push, help, assistance. Now he graduated from Skidmore, so now he's on his own.
Luz, I want to talk to you, and these are cards, questions that you guys have written. I forgot to bring my glasses, so I don't know. I'm going to look at the ones that are like this one. This one I can read.
36-point fonts.
If you wrote with little letters, están muy jodidos. Luz, you have spent years and years and years of your life, not just now with what's going on, but you've spent years of your life advancing reproductive freedom and reproductive rights and for women. You, during Maria, one of the things you all gave money to was the midwife program. I mean, this has been a cause of your life. So when you see what's happening now, tell me something. I mean, what should we as women in America be feeling and doing, and the men that support us be feeling and doing right now?
Well, I think we've seen it in the states that have put up referendums where women and their supporters have gone out in force and fought back against more restrictive rights. It's unfortunate that in some states that hasn't been an option. But my career has been about families and children, and embedded in that are women's rights. And what's happening now, it sends me back to my adolescence. I grew up when if the worst thing that could happen to you is you got pregnant, because girls disappeared. In my junior year, the school president never returned from Easter break, and it was never spoken about. We just didn't have a school president again. But that was not an uncommon thing, that women or young girls were banished. Once we had reproductive rights, we were able to choose what our lives are like. And for many women, it's the hardest decision they'll ever make. And we need to continue to allow women to have control over their bodies and support any initiative where that is a possibility.
Before I move into questions, I wanted to ask, so you talk in the book about the genesis, how Lin-Manuel, niña, ¿qué te pasa? How Lin-Manuel got his name. And it's like, so I'm reading the story, and did Luz have any say in her son's name?
No.
No, we had a deal.
We had a deal.
If it was a girl, I would name her. If it was a boy, he would name him.
I would have not had any say. I think you wanted to call the girl Melissa.
Miranda, that would have been nice.
I had said, since I was 13 years old, that if I had a boy, his name would be Lin-Manuel. So I was going to live that reality, and we did.
Caso cerrado.
How both of you are parents, you will be a parent. How do they influence the kind of parenting you and Vanessa do? How do they influence the kind of parenting you do with your children?
I can speak to that a little bit. I think the secret of my parents' marriage is that they do very different things, and they're genuinely happy to see each other at the end of the day. And I married someone who could not be further from the world of the arts. And
She's smarter than you.
So much smarter than me. Yes, like Luis, married someone much smarter than me. and who does a totally different thing, but on the things that are important, on family, on music, on food, we're very aligned. And we're genuinely happy to see each other at the end of the day. And I think that's been the whole thing. That's what I see.
Parenting-wise, what I want to say at least took from Luis is I know where my kids are every minute. I know exactly what they're doing, who they're with, and even though he was busy on the road, and back in those days, you needed a quarter to call, your parents. Can I stay for an extra half hour after school? I would have to do it. If I couldn't get in touch with them, I had to go home, but he knew what my homework was, no matter where I was. I think through high school and college, didn't matter how busy he was, and that I have.
Was that before cell phones?
Way before cell phones.
So that's
what I'm talking about.
You, Miguel, are the cell phone generation, so you had no excuse.
No, that one's got a tracker app on him.
I got invented 360.
Life 360.
Can I tell the iced tea story? Because that's the best example of...
Go ahead.
I have to tell it as my dad. Is that okay if I do Luz Miranda for 45 seconds? Okay, so I come home at the end of the day, and I'm exhausted. And I see Lucecita walk. This is before Miguel was around. And I see Lucecita, and I go, "Ay, Lucecita, I'm exhausted. Will you get me a glass of iced tea from the refrigerator?" And she goes, "Why do you make me get you the iced tea? You never asked Lin-Manuel to do anything. I have to do everything around here." And she into the kitchen, and I get no iced tea. Lin-Manuel walks by. "Lin-Manuel, hazme un favor. Would you get me a glass of iced tea? I'm exhausted." Lin-Manuel hugs me around the head. He kisses my forehead. He goes, "Daddy, I love you more than anything. of course I'll get you iced tea. And he walks into the kitchen, and I never see him again. And that's kind of been our approach to Luis over the course of our lives.
Listen, and I feel...
That's why, if you go into my phone, my first contact is Lucecita.
Where is Luz?
She's second. She's second.
I feel like music is such a huge part of all of your lives, such a huge part. Like I see you all dancing all the time. Obviously you, Miguel, you've been working in the music industry. Tell me, soundtrack of your life.
The Sound of Music.
But also, wait, on your first date, there were shared albums you had in each other's collections, right?
We did. Actually, we went to see a Puerto Rican group called Haciendo Punto en Otro Son. It was protest music.
So
And
you've been a right-winger your entire life.
very right-winger my entire life. And in fact, we got to go to Puerto Rico for the reunion like 3 years ago. And this was 47 years ago. We have been married now 46 years.
But they both had Man of La Mancha. That was like a shared album. Camelot. So it's this weird mix of like Latin protest music and show tunes.
How about you? You, yeah, Sita, what's your music, go-to music?
So,
Go-to music now or go-to music memories? Like memories I have of the music we grew up with at home. Yes, the show tunes, but also from movies. He would see a movie.
oh my God, Dirty Dancing. Holy
Dirty Dancing,
shit.
the time of my life.
We could never, this was on cassette, and we could never get to Be My Baby, which was the second song on the cassette of Dirty Dancing, because he would just press jam rewind and listen to I've Had the Time of My Life on a loop for about a year. And
When
you
I
hear,
like
"Tum,
a song, I
tum,
like
tum,
a song."
Tum, 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 rewind.
What a Feeling from Fame. That was one that you used to play a lot. 6 in the morning, we're getting ready for school, and it would blast it really loud.
Yeah, I get up very early.
Yeah, so there were songs like that from movies that would be on repeat, and that was like on a record.
Yeah.
So,
For Miguel, it's hip hop. It's really not.
Well, Sita's the same age as hip hop, so I would steal Sita's hip hop records. And she took me to all the early hip hop movies, like we saw Beat Street, and we saw Breakin', we saw Disorderlies, and for my 6th grade graduation, you took me to see a Kid and Play movie. And so that was where I was getting my steady source of hip hop from, was from Sita.
Mm-hmm.
okay, here's a question. What is your advice to immigrant families coming to the U.S. in our current climate?
Just find out what you need to do to be legal. Make sure that you figure out schools, reality stuff. I remember when lots of Puerto Ricans moved to Florida after Maria, people telling me, we have to get them out to vote. I'm like, we have to figure out where they're going to put their kids in schools. Let's begin to make sure those people have the basic human services that they need to begin to build a reality. And I believe that that's what we need to do. And if we create a society that can do that, whatever party does that will get their vote when eventually they're registered to vote.
Do the rest of you, you talk in the book that Lin-Manuel does not like politics, but somehow you always wrangle him into stuff. But how about the rest of you? Do you feel like you're politically involved, politically active? Do you want to be?
I'm not. To be honest, I've only gotten interested in being more politically active recently, within probably the last like 3-4 months.
This is a good time to get politically active.
Yeah,
Miguel.
yeah, it is.
Yes.
So that is something that we can talk about later.
Yeah, and listen, it's like if your dad's the butcher, like you've got meat around the house a lot. Like we were that was always around us. So you know, I think that I like to stay up to date. I like to know what's going on in the world, and I think when I can throw my shoulder into something where I feel like I can be of use, I try to do that. But on the whole, you know, people ask me, are you running for office? I was like, you want the guy who wrote Encanto to run for office? Are you kidding me? Like, you don't want me in charge of anything. You want me writing you tunes.
But one of the things that brought you, that got all of you very politically involved, and involved in a humanitarian way, was Maria. And I think it was almost providential, right, that you had this huge platform at a time when your country needed it. So what was that? How did that affect
And also
you?
talk about a time when we had someone in charge who could not be more apathetic towards the plight of our people. I mean, you all saw the pictures of him.
Hostile.
Paper towels. And so it was one of those moments where you look around and you look for the adults in the room, and it's you. And so we all chipped in the way we could. I wrote a song as quickly as, like, before the, you know, because we had radio silence from the island. I mean, that was really terrifying. And that's not hypothetical. That's our own families. We cannot hear from our families. We know we're not going to hear from our families. We don't know if they're alive. And so we all sort of put our lives on hold for like 6 months, just raising money and raising awareness and doing everything we could within our respective lanes, because it was needed.
Mm-hmm. When you, you know, you talk about somebody who was in charge who was apathetic to what happened in Maria, was throwing paper towels at people, yet he's making some strides in the Latino community. How do you explain that? Because I can't.
At the end of the day, people now are voting for no one. You have the only Latino poll that it's out a couple of weeks ago, because the problem with most of the polls that we read, it's that we are 8% of the sample, 9% of the sample. Most of the interviews were in English, and a third of our community only speaks Spanish, voting community. So there's a lot of trash out there, which is what made me begin to think about writing the book. The only Latino poll 2 weeks ago, total Latino sample, says that Biden is at 49%. He got 66, 67% of our vote, but they were surprised that Trump was in the 30s, which is what he got in the last election. Most of the others were undecided. The difficulty we have as Democrats, it's that we see the world as black and white, because that's the politics of this country, and we're not black. We are not base voters. We are persuadable voters, and to do that, you have to talk to us constantly. My concern is that we're waiting too much to begin that dialogue, but we have an administration that grew up in the world of black and white politics, and we are an anomaly.
One of the fears I have is that I feel like too often, and you talk about this in the book, you talk about building a black-brown coalition. And I feel like they would like to pit us, that there are people out there are forces out there who would like to pit minority communities against each other for political gain. How do we fight against that?
It will happen organically. When I came to New York, it was the years after the Young Lords. So when we are raised in the same community, we are facing the same difficulties. It just takes organizing and That's what's lacking a lot. If we organize our communities, everybody's neighbors, they know the real problems that they have. Nobody has to tell them what they are. It's a matter of organizing them and figuring out how do you do something about it. And voting is just one way of doing something about it.
Maria wants to know, who are the Latino political leaders today that you see having a lasting and impactful career?
Get it, Luis.
It's a lot of our leaders are the Obamas of 20 years ago. Who here thought that Obama was going to be president of the United States?
Your kids did.
When he was a candidate, when he was beginning to be known, but that a senator from Illinois will defeat Hillary Clinton and become president of the United States. Most people never saw that. And that's the reality of our community. We have a lot of young leaders. If I talk to you about Rochelle Garza, you will not know who Rochelle Garza is. She's a fifth-generation Mexican-American who ran for AG against Criminal Paxton in Texas and lost. But that's the future of our community. So there are people like that throughout the country, and those are the people who are going to make America great. It's not MAGA.
I have a couple of last questions. This one, forget about it. It's too small. I can't read this. I'm in menopause. No puedo. Do you have any parenting advice for raising well-adjusted teens and helping them find their passion? Did you raise well-adjusted teens?
That's a better question.
I think I did.
Were they well-adjusted as teens?
Luz, you go. You're the psychologist in this family.
I recently read an article that parents are misinformed that they're telling their kids to follow their passion because their passions may not be their strengths. And what we did in our family was basically help them recognize where their strengths were, encourage them to pursue the areas where they were strong. Luckily, it was also a passion. There's nothing my daughter loves more than reconciling a checking account.
This is true.
And needless to say, Lin-Manuel.
I haven't seen my checkbook in ages.
I have.
And Lin-Manuel was dancing since he was in utero. So it's not so much the passion, but the strengths, because music was a strength of his.
Yeah, I think I've been lucky. My daughter, who is here, has always loved psychology, and she's working on her PhD in psychology right now. And I don't know where she is. Wave, Hunter. And then I don't know how it's happened, but
I know where she is. You've got her on the 360 app.
They took our phones away.
They did take our phones away. I have an 8-year-old who loves tennis, and that's his passion. He's going to play tennis.
And it's his strength as
in high
well.
school. And it's his strength and his passion. Alex, the middle one, who plays the piano. Some of you may have seen his piano playing on Instagram, and he's just going to go into music. And then I have a theater kid. And that's just what he's going to do. Unfortunately, he also has to do school, which he's not happy about. But
as long as you don't give him a life-changing speech at 5 minutes to curtain, I think
I'll
be
try
okay.
not to
He's very
do
talented.
that. But I never had a passion, I want to say. I had a strength, So sometimes you get lucky. I don't know. There's no formula for it.
I knew she was good at math. In second grade, I went to talk to her teacher, and she told me she'll never learn math. She's not good at the timetables. And I'm like, what?
It was a Montessori Greenwich Village,
So I was like, wait. Did she memorize the multiplication tables? No, we're not going to do it like that. I mean, you have to do it like that. You got to memorize the fucking multiplication tables. That's the way it has been taught forever.
Right.
So she memorized the tables, and she did well.
Never look back.
Here's another question. This one's from Sky. How did your dad's activism inspire your storytelling?
Well, that's an interesting one.
The others have not been interesting?
What? Say again?
The others have not been interesting.
That's a reverse fact.
Well, you said that we were into aggression in this family.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Yes. Thank you for the first interesting question of the night, Anna. I would say that his story to me is really interesting. I think that, and I haven't been shy about this, when I started reading that Ron Chernow biography of Hamilton, and I read about this really smart, really restless, impatient kid who has done everything he can do on this island and is hungry for more, and then writes and gets himself a scholarship to get off an island where no such scholarship exists, I was reminded of my father. I'm the most laid-back member of this family. and people think I'm intense. I'm really not. But compared to my dad, I'm really laid back. And so when I was playing Hamilton, I was playing Luz Miranda. I was, it's that energy of, yeah, I got that done. What else can I be getting done? And that is, that's Mr. 4 hours a night sleep Luis that I'm playing. And it was really interesting for me to write that because I felt like I was kind of navigating a very particular restless personality that I don't really share. But I got to investigate that through my writing. And play it every night.
He talks about that. That you sleep 3 to 4 hours a night. So the rest of the time, my question is he letting you all sleep or está jodiendo?
Oh, yeah, no. I'm good about doing my own shit and let people do their own shit. I'm cool with that. You heard Miguel, I have not pulled him into politics. The moment he wants to, believe me, the door is open. But no, I do my own thing. And Luz, at 10 o'clock, Luz puts her pajama on. There's at least 3 more hours before I go to bed. So,
yeah. Sounds like a perfect marriage. So there's 2 things I need to do. One is we've got Puerto Rican royalty in the house. Where is she?
Rita Moreno.
Rita Moreno. Lynn, what does Rita mean? ¿Qué?
Legend.
Oh, I have to ask you about something that I've always wanted to ask, and I had forgotten this. I remember seeing you go visit with your dad, Walter Mercado. Mucho, mucho amor. And I remember you trying on one of his fantastic capes, the one that was the Puerto Rican flag. And when you went to meet him, he said to you, Boricua. What did that mean to you?
Oh, it meant the world. I mean, Walter Mercado I'm wearing a Walter Mercado pin right now.
No, you're literally wearing your life tonight.
I'm wearing the Luz Miranda cosplay I always dreamed of wearing. I don't
We
dress like-
change
Yeah.
bases.
But I meant the world because that was someone who was on every Puerto Rican TV growing up. I remember waiting for Capricornio to find out what my day would bring from Walter Mercado. And for him to, I mean, he not only let us into his home and let me try on one of his fabulous robes, which is just Luz Miranda on a Tuesday. He read my chart. He was like, you were born January. I mean, I know everything that's going to happen. I'm not going to tell you, but he read my whole chart and he told me my whole life. He read my kids' chart. It was an incredible day.
That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm so glad you had that experience.
I am too.
Me da envidia ajena. All right. It says here, don't read this aloud. So, we have a surprise, a way to end this. There is no better way to end this than wishing and singing the matriarch happy birthday on her birthday. So join us. You want it in English or Spanish or both?
Both.
It's
Bueno, dale.
cumpleaños feliz when we get to that part.
Dale,
Let's start
Lin.
in English.
Okay.
Lead us in singing.
Happy birthday on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Luz, dear Luz. Happy birthday to you. Now, cumpleaños feliz. Cumpleaños feliz. Te deseamos a ti. Cumpleaños, cumpleaños. Cumpleaños feliz. Se está poniendo joven.
Thank you, thank you.
We cannot, it's against the rule. So this is a lightless cake.
A flameless candle.
You have
cake.
to pretend they're lit.
Okay.
Thank you. Honestly, what a wonderful evening. Thank you for letting us be part of your family. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for being so generous with our community, for always showing up, for being you, for making a difference, for being mentors, for being an example, for making us feel proud at a time when so many want to demonize us. So gracias, gracias, gracias a los Miranda. Gracias to all of you for being here. Thank you for allowing me to be part of it.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.